Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to SuperCoach Edge, another edition, of course, of Damo's Team Talk. This time coming out of round 16, and it was, the last bye round. Thank the Lord, we've come out the other side, and hopefully, all of us have come out better than what we did heading into it. Thankfully for me, as I flick across to show my score and rank now, I did. I finished up better placed compared to where I was heading into the buys. However, unfortunately, round 16 wasn't the best round, especially compared to round 15 when I scored that 2,300 ridiculous score and climbed the ranks. I ended up scoring a 1,857, and with that, ended up dropping 717 spots in rank, but still ranked inside the top 7K to be ranked 6,709th overall. In terms of team value, not too bad either. 13,335,400. So pretty decent in context of, I guess, the players that I've brought in, the cash cows, appreciation of players across the board. So it just shows that I have a little bit of money up my sleeve to bring in another primo in, I guess, in good time. We're not in any rush at the moment because as I flick across to show my team, I've got 22 primo, I should say. And if we count it in terms of the 23rd primo, which would be the flex, that is the only spot that I am lacking. Now, I end up having, not too bad. The strategy that I am going in with at the moment, and I spoke about it last team talk, was with regards to having Tom McCarthy coming in. I am comfortable to have him as part of my primo spread of 23 players at the moment. But if you want to discount him, I've only got 22. So the one ace that I do have up my sleeve is in the form of the salary cap, or the bank that I have. And it is 196.2K in the bank. I do have 4 trades in hand as well. The strategy that I was spoken about previously is having 4 trades remaining for injuries only at the back end of the season coming out of the buys. So we can't be too, I guess, hasty with regards to burning through these trades. I've spoken about it enough. Like last season, I was hit very, very hard around about round 18 with regards to injuries. I had Max Gawn go down, I think it was with that foot or ankle injury. I had Took Miller go down, I think it was with a broken forearm or wrist, it might have been. I had Rankin, who was concussed and suspended, and I only really had him, I think, for 2 games out of a possible, I think it was 7 or 8. And then I had Sheasel go out injured. I had Charlie Curnow as well. So I had around about 5 or 6 players, which scuttled me, and I only had 4 trades remaining. So I'm very conscious of that. This time around, of course, we do have the flex position to help out with regards to those issues cropping up, but we still are conscious of season-ending injuries and also injuries that may persist beyond 3+ weeks, which we've got to sort of factor things in now. We're at round 17, and there's only 8 rounds to go. So if we have 4 trades up our sleeve, that's half a trade every single round, if you want to sort of average things out there. So it's not the most amount of security that we'd love to have when it comes to covering injuries longer term, but that's kind of what we have to deal with. But we just have to be conscious of not being too hasty in terms of using these trades and bringing in guys that, might appeal now, but if we cop injuries and we cop them hard as we did in the past, I think it was the last 2 months of the season in 2024, we can find ourselves in a little bit of a pickle, which we don't want to again. And off the back of that, our season rank fell. So we want to try and make ground where I think a lot of people now would probably be around about this mark in terms of trades and maybe thinking, okay, I'm in a comfortable spot. I haven't had too many injuries. Let's continue making trades and bring in these primos to stack your team with. Now, that's all well and good, but unless you've got cover across pretty much every single line, or you have players that have DPP, which can provide cover across multiple lines, whilst also having players that can come off the bench to cover those players that are, you're switching between lines. It is fraught with danger. If you're not going down that route where you've got depth and you're just burning through these excess trades, it's a high risk, and yes, it can be high reward, but in my time playing SuperCoach, I can't remember a season where we haven't been struck down with injuries to, big name players or highly owned players at the back end of the season. So I'm keeping that in mind, but We will, of course, explore some potential scenarios that we could go down. But at this stage, I think we're going to stick fat and maybe not make a trade. We'll have to wait and see. But I will chat about trades at the back end of this episode. So let's go through, as we always do, line by line and just highlight as to who went well, who went poorly, and chat about potentially some injuries as well that we have to deal with. So in defense, Jordan Clark, he was the highest scorer in my team with a 145, and he's come from nowhere, really. He's kind of taken on the scoring of Sinclair, and Sinclair's kind of taken on the scoring of a Jordan Clark. Now, Jordan Clark in his past 4 games has gone 143, 96, 119, and a 145, and has increased by around about 31k over that time, which is pretty good for him. Whereas Jack Sinclair, he has plummeted. He's had a couple of poor games, a 65 and an 89 in his past 2, but his past 5 games prior to that was 124, 131, 143, 113, and 109. So he's a little bit off the boil at the moment, and we are hoping that he can recapture that nice form, but he is owned by 43.9% of the competition. So, a high enough ownership to not really worry too much about the impact that he's having on our team with regards to his scoring fluctuating. Alongside him, Harry Sheasel, another player that is highly owned, and his scoring is much left to be desired, really, because he scored a 60 and his role is being thrown around again by Clarko, and it is absolutely pissing me off, as it would the 56.7% of owners out there. But again, he is owned by the majority of the competition, so we just have to grin and bear it really at this stage. If you wanted to trade him out and kind of anti-pot him, you could go down that route, but it's one of those things where it comes down to the number of trades that you have in hand, and I don't have too many, as I spoke about, and I don't want to be going down this route with regards to trading out someone as highly owned as him, who could, by his own rights, actually turn things around, because in his previous 3 games to the weekend, he scored a 137, 115, and a 103. So he can fluctuate, and he can still flash those ceiling scores. So we will stick with him. Dane Zorko, he was on the bye. Lockie Whitfield, thankfully on the bye. Otherwise, I would have been copying a donut here, because Whitfield is out through concussion protocols. We are hopeful that he does return this coming round, because he faces West Coast in round 17 and could absolutely feast. His last game against West Coast was back in round 4, where he scored a 148. Prior to that, the other 2 games was 124 and 110. So a really nice, favourable history against the Eagles. And yeah, just hopeful that he does make a return. I think his concussion protocol ends on his game day on 4th of July against West Coast. So we are hopeful that he passes all concussion protocols. He gets through training fit and firing, and we see him out there, because we don't necessarily want to be going down an extra primo coming out of the bye when everyone else who's a non-owner of Whitfield will be getting a little bit of a leg up compared to those owners. Now, Callum Mills, 56, I think we can kind of come to expect this fluctuation in his scoring. We all saw in his first game back for the season, he scored a 69, ding, ding, of course. And after that, 107 and 121. But on the weekend, 56 is just not good enough. He had 22 disposals, so he had the ball in his hand enough, but he just wasn't using the ball too well and couldn't really capitalise. So bit of a disappointment there from Callum Mills. His ownership is, just looking at that, is actually 24.7%. So not the highest. And he was brought in for us to be a 23rd man flex player before, of course, Sam Darcy burst back on the scene and we opted to go for him. So Callum Mills is on field for us, which isn't the best. However, having said that, we do have some potentially loophole players in the form of Angus Clark, the youngster from Essendon, who he held on to. We ended up trading Matt Carroll instead, obviously being dropped for Carlton, and I don't know if he's going to be back in the team, because Lockie Cowan is more than likely to take that spot back in defence when he is declared, I guess, full fitness and at really good form coming out of the VFL. So we held on to Angus Clark. Alongside him is Saad El Hawley, who is actually returning from his hamstring injury. He could return as well. So my bench is actually stacked with Essendon players at the moment, alongside Zach Johnson and Jai Caldwell, who was on the bye on the weekend. But there is a little bit of, depth there and cover, which is good to see. But just the fact that we have to rely on Essendon players probably doesn't fill me with the most confidence. But hey, could be Carlton players, could be worse. Let's move on to the midfield, and Maxi Holmes was on the bye. Caleb Sarong just returned back to that floor score of 84 that he scored against the Saints after a couple of really nice rounds of 142 and 149. Just frustrating, really, with Caleb Sarong, but yep, hey, it is what it is. Zach Butters scored a really nice 123 as well, being an incredibly valuable pickup since we brought him into our team with 101, 130, and 123 in his past 3 since being an owner. Nicky Dacos, he went well as the VC, and we locked in his score of 131 as our captain score. And it was really nice. I was expecting more close to a 150 odd, but 131, we will take that. The 125 plus is always the marker for us to lock it in. And that we did. Marcus Bontempelli just returned back to a putrid score. I don't know what he's going with Bont, but for those people that have faded Bont, by and large, 7% of new owners jumped on him on the weekend, coming off the back of his 177 against Richmond. So they would be absolutely filthy, as I was when I brought in Bont, and he's dropped well over, I think, 90K now. In fact, almost 100K. So very frustrating with Bont, but he does face North Melbourne this coming weekend, who he has scored 123, 157, and a 169 against in his past 3. So hopefully he can bounce back off the back of that. Adam Chera, a 66, which I think would probably be his season low. Let's just have a quick look at that. And it was, unfortunately. He's been ultra consistent across the season, where I think prior to that, his season low score was 81. So a bit of a low score by Ches, but we are hopeful that he does rebound back with a nice score against the Pies. Clay Hall. Now, this is a little bit of a sliding doors moment, because we were very, very close in trading out Clay Hall a couple of rounds ago, and we opted to keep him and trade out another youngster. Who was that? Let me just have a look back at my trading history, because I actually traded out Clay Hall in round, and then I reversed it. So it was, where are we? I think it was Vicentini, I think it might have been, or a Lindsay, Xavier Lindsay. So it was off the back of Clay Hall being named. I knew he was going to be the sub at that round, but thankfully he actually played a full game on the weekend and scored a 78. We always knew that he had that up his sleeve when he was able to play a full game. He scored an 88 in his first game and then a 68 in his second game, but has kind of been held back by McQualter. But 22 disposals, 4 marks, 4 tackles, 1 free against, and that 78 score actually counted in our best 18 scores, would you believe? Tom McCarthy, he was our one of our trade-ins on the weekend, scored a 101, and as I said, I'm very happy with him to be a 23rd primo at the moment. Outside of McCarthy coming into my team, just going through the other trade, I brought in Sam Darcy, and out went Carroll and Lachie Neale, which is a little bit contentious, but Lachie Neale, I feel as though I needed to sort of make a move, and that move was in anti-potting Lachie Neale. So we'll see how things work out there, and hopefully, knock on wood, it does. But Tom McCarthy, as I said, happy with him being a 23rd man. I think if I had a full suite of primos and Tom McCarthy was on the bench, it would be an absolute waste. So in its current form with my team, with the structure, and not having a genuine 23rd primo, having Tom McCarthy being able to play is a blessing. Otherwise, I'd have to try and loop him off the bench, which can be fraught with danger depending upon, obviously when West Coast play and when those players that I have on the bench play across any given round. So Tom McCarthy, just an absolutely incredible debut in first couple of games by the mid-season rookie draftee. On the bench, Caldwell didn't play, as I mentioned, and Zach Johnson, the fellow Don, either. Hugh Boxall didn't play for the Saints. In the rucks, we have Luke Jackson, 116, and Tristan Cherry with the 111. Now, Luke Jackson, he was traded in, for Rowan Marshall in the past couple of rounds. Last round, in fact, I did it. And Luke Jackson scored the 186. And it's a bit annoying because Romo has sort of turned his form around a little bit, but we'll definitely take a 186 and 116 in the first 2 games from Luke Jackson. And in fact, let's just have a look. He had less time in the ruck, but was able to still kick 2 goals, had 16 hit-ins, 8 tackles, 4 marks, 9 handballs, and 6 kicks. So we're still playing, I think, around the ball as well. Let's just have a quick look at this, because that was sort of the appeal in getting Jackson, was the fact that he was getting CBAs, playing as like almost an extra midfielder, which he was again against the Saints. Had 65% CBAs, and then when he was being rested, he was being pushed up forward. So a real good get, I think, and has a plum role. When he's not playing on the ruck, he's still able to get his hands on the footy as almost that, extra tall midfielder. So really love that. Tristan Cherry, as I said, 111. Harry Boyd didn't play at R3 for the Saints. For the forwards, Baz Lenka had the bye. Track scored a 104. He's kind of just gone under the radar in my team, I must admit, Track. Been fluctuating his scoring, but yeah, we just have to sort of grin and bear it. Scored the 104, which we're happy with against the Suns. Jack McRae scored a 91, which is probably par for the course in terms of his floor scores. We just are hoping that he can flash a few more ceiling scores like he did against the Pies with that 131 last week. Caleb Daniel, should say, 96. He, again, has been very consistent. A lot of the scores in 90s, some 80s, a couple of 100-plus scores. So he sticks around in our team and in a majority of teams as well, to the tune of, 58.5% of teams. So there you go. Chad Warner, the Chad, scored a 96, and that's kind of his, floor score. So we are hoping for some ceiling scores. Isaac Rankin, a 99, and a nice welcome return to some decent scoring. A little bit better than the previous couple of rounds of 89 and 81. And yeah, we just have to sort of come to expect this with Isaac Rankin. I think he's actually still ranked as one of the top forwards. He's ranked the 6th best scoring forward for the season. So he's on the cusp there. And we're happy enough that we've got him in our team. And then for the flex, of course, as I mentioned, Sam Darcy scored a 73. Probably should have been more than that. One goal was a play onto advantage, which probably should have been Darcy's way, because he received a free kick, umpire called play on, and the other doggy player kicked that goal. But he looked like he was on track for like 6 goals. And Sydney, to their credit, kind of shut him down. But yeah, I think a 73, that's a floor score. We know all the ceiling scores as well. And that's part of the reason why we have Sam Darcy in our flex, because he's going to get those massive scores. And if he doesn't, more than likely it will drop out of our best 22 scores. And on the bench, up forward is Campbell Gray for the Tigs, and he's going to be out for, I think they've said, a return of rounds 18 to 20. So if he returns around about that time, in a couple of weeks' time, that will be very handy, just as bench cover more than anything. And Cooper Simpson is going to be out until around 21 or 22, but again, hopefully we don't have to rely upon these guys. But like I mentioned earlier, we need as much depth as we can get, because outside of these 4 injury trades, we do need cover for those 1 to 2 week injuries where we don't really want to use any of these 4 trades. Now, speaking of trades, let's get into very quickly options that we could look at if we really wanted to, bring on another primo into our team. Now, let's just quickly adjust and bring Jai Caldwell off the bench on field. It means that Clay Hall is on the bench with that emergency. We also have Zach Johnson as well playing, and Boxall at the moment doesn't look as though he's going to play for the Saints. So at least 2 of the 3 bench players we have in the midfield will be playing, which is always handy. And then in defense, we have Angus Clark, who you'd think will keep his spot for the Dons as well and be playing. And Sardale Hawley, we don't know if he's going to return, but he is back from his injury, which is always a bonus, and could maybe return for the Dons on a given week. Outside of that, as I said, the forwards, we don't have any cover there at the moment, but it is by the by. But what we could do with regards to trades. Now, as I said, we've got 196.2k in the bank. We could trade someone like a Clay Hall or a Zach Johnson, who are sort of the higher priced rookies that we have, at 221.4 for Johnson or 222.1 for Clay Hall. And we could try and bring in a value player. That value player more than likely will be sort of on the bench and looping their scores off the bench if need be. But I think, Tom McCarthy, we're quite happy with him on field. If we were to trade Zach Johnson, it would give us 417.6k. Obviously, we would go down to 3 trades, which isn't ideal, but it means we're not having to use 2 trades to bring in a genuine primo. But if we look at players around about this price point of 417, it doesn't leave us with too much, and it means we have to hunt for value, which is always fraught with danger. Ryan Marich is now, he's a decent value player, but don't really trust his scoring because he hasn't really got the role anymore. Scrolling down the list, Trent Rivers, no. Scored a 96 on the weekend, but no, wouldn't trust him. Patrick Lipinski, no. Winhagen, no. Jack Ross, no. We could go for Riley Sanders, maybe. If we sort things by average, Jacob Hopper is the best average of the lot with an 89.2, and he's priced at 416.7k. But, there's a couple of 60 odd scores there and whatnot. Yeah, I wouldn't be trusting him. Scrolling down the list again. Yeah, there isn't really, Riley Sanders is probably one, but he's still got those fluctuations in his scoring. Like he's got a 46, a 65. At the past 2 games, he's got a 106 and 99. Not the most reliable, so I wouldn't go down that route. There is Jake Lloyd, who's 80.4k below his price point. Got dropped the other week. Since returned with a 98 score, but he's not the same Jake Lloyd, Seagull, as we know, and love from previous seasons ago. So wouldn't be touching him. Levi Ashcroft is in this price point as well. No, obviously, we traded him out the other week. There is Sam Flanders, who kind of pikes my interest. Like he's 268.9k below his starting price, and his scoring hasn't been the worst, really. If we have a look from rounds 11 onwards, he scored 89, a 90, a 32, which was a bit of an outlier type game round 13 against the Cats. 91 in round 15 against the Giants, and then an 87 on the weekend against Melbourne. I was looking at it earlier in terms of the breakdown for, CBA's positioning, role, everything else for Ned Flanders, aka Sam Flanders, on DFS Australia. Now, looking at this, he's only really, if we highlight the scores 80 or above, he scored 80 or better in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 games. So 8 of his 13 games, he scored 80 or better. In fact, 82 or better, I should say. But he's actually not too bad. Like, those are sort of the floor scores that he's had in last year. Last year, we know when he had the CBAs, he was an absolute gun. He's not quite got that roll back as yet. But if we look at his heat maps in his past 2 games alone, he's actually playing more of a center type role as opposed to playing as sort of that high half forward. So it looks really good there in round 15. Round 16 as well, very, very similar. Drifting all around the ground, really, without getting CBAs, which is handy. And that 32-point game against the Cats in round 13, he was playing more as sort of that high half forward. Couldn't get his hands on the footy for whatever reason. Let's have a look back further. Yeah, there's probably more high half forward in round 12. Round 11, again, more high half forward, more camped in the forward line. So he's got a little bit of a role change up here, which we don't mind. And with that has probably come a little bit more consistency. But again, we aren't seeing the ceiling scores that we know and love from Flanders. However, at that price point of 372.6k, if we're talking about value, you can't get probably any better than that. There is another guy as well, Brady Hoff, who is getting some CBAs with West Coast, who JG, as you might know through the Swordplay Boys and does some incredible work on Twitter. One of the fellow content creators brought him to my attention as well. So shout out to JG for that. Sorry, not GJ Gardner Holmes, JG for that. But, if we were to go for Sam Flanders, that would leave us with still around about 40 to 50k up our sleeve if we need to use it for the remaining 3 trades. So we could do this, Zach Johnson to Sam Flanders in 1 trade. The benefit with Flanders is the fact that he does have defensive midfielder DPP, so he can provide cover across both lines. But do we really want to go for someone like him who still has those fluctuations in his scoring and doesn't have the best role? Probably not. So we'll continue on looking and see if there's any other players that really catch our interest. We might just change things to the 3-round average because that kind of gives an indication of, change of role and obviously form line and stuff as well. Now, there is guys to the tune of Jace Burgoyne. He's averaging about 80 odd in his past 3 games. Looked okay, but similar scoring to Flanders, 80, 97, 83, and 79 in his past 4. So probably not. And we want to be looking at guys with more of those ceiling type scores, because if they're not going to be on field, we want to be using them to try and loop their scores on field. There's Angus Sheldrick, of course, but he kind of has similar scoring to Flanders, 81, 85, 93, 109, and 83, dating back to round 10. And then on the weekend, he had 56. So still an outlier type score there, but again, not really the ceiling type scores that we would be hunting for. Brady Hoff, who I spoke about, he's 362.8K and has looked okay. On the weekend, he looked really good. 110 against the Pies, prior to that an 89 against North Melbourne. But he does have the fluctuations in scoring. He was getting CBAs against Adelaide and Geelong and scored a 60 and 40. So again, do we want to go for players of that caliber that have the high variation but have a high ceiling? I don't know. You could always do it. Or do we just wait for someone like a Horn Francis to drop in price? Now, Horn Francis, I mentioned him because of the fact that we were actually eyeing him off a couple of weeks ago when he was returning from injury. We had him in our team, of course, but we opted to hold Jack McRae instead. And Horn Francis in his past couple of games has been struggling with a bit of a shoulder niggle and, was out through, I think it was a hamstring. Now, I'm a little bit worried with him. Was subbed out in the weekend against Carlton, only scored a 49, but the bonus here is that his break-even in round 17 is 140. And if he scores about an 80 to 90 odd, he'll drop around about 20K down to around about 445, 450K, which will be very, very handy. And keeping in mind we have almost 200K in the bank, we could potentially wait until Clay Hall or an Angus Clark or a Zach Johnson go up to 250K. Then we can put 200K on the head of either of those players and bring in Horn Francis. Now, Horn Francis, I think, fits the bill as that sort of player that really has the high ceiling and someone that we can bank upon to try and loop their scores on field. Mind you, we could probably do it with any player. We could, have Horn Francis on field and then have, another player off the bench that we can try and loop on. The benefit with Horn Francis, of course, is he has the forward mid eligibility and provides cover across both the forward and midfield, which at the moment I don't have. I have multiple cover from defence midfield in terms of Jack Sinclair, Sheasel, Holmes, and McCarthy. And, if we want to count Al Hawley as well, but, not playing, so probably not. Whereas with Horn Francis, we don't have anyone in the midfield at the moment that has mid-forward eligibility and won't be able to provide cover across either of those lines. So especially considering we only have Campbell Gray and Cooper Simpson on the bench, both not playing, both injured, we don't have any cover up forward. So that's the other appeal in waiting for Horn Francis. And we all know he has scored in the past 136, 118, 111, 119, 153. That's what we want from a player that is going to be our 23rd man. So I am more conscious of sort of running the risk of, hopefully Clay Hall can keep his spot. And on top of that, isn't the sub. His break-even is 23, Clay Hall, against the Giants. If he can score a 65, could go up around about 20K, which would almost push us there. He would go up to a price point of 242 or 243, thereabouts, and almost be enough money to help us get in Horn Francis. If Horn Francis drops more money than what's projected, that's even better. So we have to sort of play the break-even game here. And we're not kind of relying upon only Clay Hall. If Zach Johnson scores well, if Angus Clark scores well, any of these youngsters can really fit the bill in terms of trying to use them as a springboard to Horn Francis. Zach Johnson has a break-even of 15. Angus Clark has a break-even of 34. Hopefully these guys can stick around in Essendon's team. And if Zach Johnson, because he's got the lowest break-even of any of these three rookies in Clay Hall, Zach Johnson, and Angus Clark, Zach Johnson, if he scores a 58, goes up 19.2K. So that will bring his price point to 240K. If he's able to score around about 70 to 80 odd, which he has done in the past in rounds 13 and 14 in his second and third game, he could go up to around about 25K, which would put his price point closer to that 245k mark. And then in round 18, he faces Richmond, hopefully again plays and, pushes his price beyond the 250k mark. And then we can do a single swap with Zach Johnson to Horne-Francis, which sounds ridiculous, but it always helps, of course, in having money in the bank. It means our trades would go down to 3 off the back of round 18, but it means that we have 3 trades for rounds 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So we'll have 3 trades for 6 rounds. Again, similar position to where we are at the moment, where we've got 4 trades for 8 rounds. So it's half a trade per round on average. So we are sort of aiming towards that, which probably means we're going to be keeping our powder dry in terms of trades, unless they are forced. Knock on wood that they're not. But we are banking upon the fact that we do have a little bit of depth on the bench in Clay Hall, Zach Johnson, and Angus Clark, and maybe even an Al Hawley across defence and in the midfield. And hopefully we don't need to rely upon any forward cover at this stage. Now, we can as well try and switch things up through the flex. At the moment, we've got Sam Darcy. So what we'd need to do is swing some things around with regards to, DPP swings if we were to put like a Caleb Daniel in midfield or a Baslenka, so on and so forth. So I guess the benefit here is if someone in the forward line is out for a week or two, every single one of them, apart from Sam Darcy, have mid-forward eligibility, which is quite hilarious. So that's Baslenka, we've got Track, we've got McRae, Caleb Daniel, Chad Warner, and Rankin. All those guys have mid-forward eligibility. So we could potentially switch things around and have Sam Darcy as our genuine cover from the flex to cover that forward vacancy if any of those 6 guys are out for a week or two. Again, fingers crossed, knock on wood, everything else, that they aren't, but that's kind of our plan at the moment in terms of trades. So sorry to make things boring in terms of not making any trades, but again, there isn't really much value to really hunt for. Again, it could be a Sam Flanders, but by the same token, I think I'd probably be more keen on going for a genuine primo, which could be in the case of going for a Connor Rosie potentially, who's priced at around about, I think he's 547.8k. We could go for a McKercher maybe. We fall just short of getting in McKercher off any of these guys via one trade. Otherwise, we would probably be considering hit that, because he's actually been scoring quite well enough with some ceiling scores, 144, a 60, 96, and 108 in his past 4 games, and has that defender mid eligibility as well. But outside of that, I think we will just sit back and wait for these rookies to appreciate in price, and also for Horne-Francis to drop in price as well. And hold on to these other trades for as long as we can. And hopefully that can be an extra ace up the sleeve to try and climb the ranks in the later rounds when other people may have used up all their trades. And if there's injuries that strike, suspensions, all that sort of stuff, we are prepared for that, whereas others may not be, and we can sort of climb over the top of them in the rank. I will mention as well, like I spoke about Whitfield. If Whitfield is out, and fingers crossed that he's not, we can cover him in the form of either a Clark, or we could potentially use a swing with Holmes going back into defence, and so on and so forth. Or if Sheasel's out. Now, Sheasel has been spoken about as someone that might be carrying a little bit of a niggle. He apparently was sore after the game on the weekend, but hopefully he is cleared to play. I think he might be having scans as well. We don't want to be losing a guy of his caliber, even though, yes, his scoring has been erratic, but again, we want to be holding on to these trades for as long as we can. So there's a couple of little worries there. Again, if Sheasel's out, we can easily cover him for a week or two by swinging Holmes back into defence, and then covering Sheasel with a Johnson or a Hall or a Clark. So it is possible, and hopefully the extra depth that I've got across defence and the midfield does come in handy if need be. But on to the VC and C side of things, of course, check out our weekly SuperCoach Edge episode as it drops, which will be probably on a Tuesday or a Wednesday at this stage, where we do go through the best VC and C options for the coming round. And I think it's probably a given. If we look through the fixture, first up, of course, Bont plays North Melbourne on the Thursday game. So Bont will be our VC. And outside of that, potentially Nick Dacos, who plays Carlton on the Friday night. Port Adelaide, they play Brisbane. Could you go for a Butters? I don't know. It's a bit of a tougher matchup. Geelong, of course, they face Richmond. You could easily go for a Baslinka. You could go for a Max Holmes as well, either of those two guys. Outside of that, any Giants player against West Coast? I don't have any Giants players apart from Whitfield. Even then, if he is declared fit to play Whitfield, I wouldn't be comfortable in going for him first up, returning from a concussion game. Interesting here as well that there's 2 Friday night games. What's the go here? Friday night game, Carlton, Collingwood, and then starting at an hour later at 8:20 p.m, West Coast and the Giants. What are the AFL doing? Weird shit. Super strange. It means there's one less Sunday game, I think. Anyway, interesting. But that's it for that, I think, ladies and gents. We might go through very, very quickly at the back end of this and wrap things up with our leagues, our Open League. Now I am ranked 318 out of 1,050 participants. So if you are one of those people in this Open League, we're going to be running through the top 10 now. And for those people that are ranked top 10, all the very best to you. Now, SFL Superstars, Sarah's team is ranked 9th overall, so good work, Sarah. Ranked 13th, but second in our Open League is Swans Rule, Derek's team. Humphreys B. Bear is Patrick's team in 3rd spot, ranked overall 17th. Straight No Chaser, Nathan's team, ranked 45th. Rounding out 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th for us is Straight No Chaser, Nathan's team. Aaron's or A-Runs, the Mighty Pies, Bonds Boys, Cade's team. Hung, his team, Always Hungry. Aled, Hot Dons. You're So Golden, love that team name, Daniel. And Curtis's team, Kurt's team, ranked 129th overall. So we have actually, in terms of top 100 scorers or ranks, should say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in our overall You People SuperCoach Edge Cup Open League. So all the very best to you guys and girls going gangbusters. In terms of the SuperCoach Edge Cash Leagues, we do have at the top in Cash League 1, Still Dream of Heaney, Zane's team, which I think is, I don't really like Cheese. So Cheesy's team, of course, one of our supporters, and you would see do his fine work on our live streams. Slim, he is a game behind in 2nd spot now on the ladder. Sloppy Joe Lay and Pipe is Jonas Goat's team, and he is equal on wins with Slim. Moves Like Jagger Josh's team in 4th spot, and Grant Bluesman in 5th spot. Pistol Pete, the father-in-law, of course, the combined father-in-law of Liam and I. Pete, his team, the Tankers, is in 6th spot. Unique Individuals, Andrew's team in 7th, and Daniel's team, Crano SC, in 8th spot. And to move along to the Cash League 2, we have Small Victories, Matthew's team on a top by a game clear. Zora Chilla or Zora Silla, Ryan's team in 2nd spot. Dinner for 2, Adam's team, our number 1 ticket holder, is going gangbusters. He is in 3rd spot, just on percentage, or points scored rather overall. Nards FC, Lucas's side in 4th spot. Mike is Donny's good, 76 in 5th. In 6th spot is John's team, Black Flag. Brandon in 7th spot with his team, Brisbane Bombers. Chris's team, Lazy Sunday, in 8th. And there is only, 2 wins separating 3rd or 2nd spot, should say, from the 8th spot team at the moment, Lazy Sunday. So there we go. It is a very, very tight contest across the board for both of those cash leagues, and all the very best to everyone in both of those cash leagues, because we have a top prize of $1,000 going to the winner of either of those leagues. So $2,000 up for grabs combined, and all the very best to everyone in those leagues. But that's it, ladies and gents. That rounds things out in terms of the way things looked coming out of round 16. And the buys are behind us. Thank the Lord. We have a full suite of players to choose from, of our best 22 or best 23 if you want to count the flex. And hopefully you came out of the buy period ranked better than what you did going into it. Whereas, just to sort of have a look at how I went, just to end things on this note, going into the buys, I was ranked 9,425th overall, and now I'm ranked 6,709th overall. So it is a big win for me, ranked around about 2.7k ranks or thereabouts in terms of where I was before the buys. My brain is cooked, ladies and gents. I need some sleep. It's been a busy time in my life. Not just my life, but my wife's as well with our little youngster. So with it, ladies and gents, thank you as always. And we'll catch you in the SuperCoach Edge episode releasing on Wednesday. So make sure to tune into that via YouTube, via audio podcast, however you like to consume us. And we'll catch you then.